Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sachin Hissaria, and in this video we will be going to discuss about changes in domain 2 as per the new CISA review manual, that is a 28th version. So guys, I am receiving a lot of inquiries that Sachin, should we buy the new review manual or not? Okay. So guys, what I am doing is I am uploading video on each the domain, whatever changes which are there in domain 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So for each the domain I would be uploading a video on my YouTube channel. Okay, for domain 1 I have already uploaded a video. In domain 2, whatever changes that is there, whatever new topic that has been added, this we will be discussing in this video. In domain 3, there are no such changes, there are no new topic added, so it will remain the same as per the old syllabus. 4 and 5 also I would be uploading a video. Okay guys, so now without wasting much of your time, let's start our video. So guys, as you can see in domain 2, previously it was covering 17% of total exam content outline. This time the percentage has been increased with 1, and now it will consist 18% of your total syllabus. Okay, now in domain 2 they have added this many topics. So topic related to data privacy basically. Okay, so they have added this topic, data privacy program and principle. Then they have also added the privacy documentations requirement. See, basically what happened is in every country there are laws for the data privacy. Let me just show you one Excel sheet which will give you a better idea. So for in each the country, guys, there are a privacy law. Okay, every country have their own privacy law. Now, what happened is then in each of this privacy law, there are certain documentations which are very common, I would say. Okay. For example, if you will see GDPR, in GDPR also, those documentations are required to be maintained. If you see the data privacy law as per Zimbabwe, for that also, there are certain documentations which company required to maintain. So in this topic we would be covering those things, that what are the documentations which are very common in those privacy law and what company needs to document. So this we will be going to discuss here. Then audit process and data governance and classification. Here we will be going to discuss how to govern the data, how to classify the data. After classifying, what are the controls company needs to implement. Then legal purpose, consent, legitimated interest. Okay, in each the data privacy law, there would be some requirement related to consent, legal purpose, that data should be collected for a legal purpose only. It has to be in the legitimated interest, transborder data flow, and information security management. So these are the topics that has been added in a domain 2, and now we will be going to discuss each and every topic in a detail. So first topic is what? Data privacy program and principle. So as per this, like every company need to make sure that they have their own data privacy program. Okay. Now, what data privacy governance mechanism will do, guys? So, as a part of data privacy governance mechanism, organization first need to identify how many personal informations are there which they are collecting as a part of a business. For example, if I am a telecom company, I will identify all my channels from where I am getting the personal information, whether it is a customer onboarding, whether it is an employee onboarding, whether it is a vendor onboarding, whatever XYZ reason, okay, through which you are collecting a personal informations, okay, that you need to identify first, okay, and it has to be managed as per the legal requirement. For personal information use and data protection, governing policies, procedures, guidelines, and data subject rights. So guys, as a part of this data privacy program, company need to maintain certain governance policies and procedures, and they also need to document the data subject right. Okay. Although definitions varies amongst the regulations. So now what would be considered as a personal information? That will vary company to company. That will vary based on the regulatory requirement as well. For example, in GDPR, there would be a definition for personal information. Now in India, DPDP Act is there. So in DPDP Act also there is a definition of personal information. But in general, if I say what is a personal information, personal data is generally any piece of information that relates to an identifiable person. For example, if I get to know your PAN number or your driving license number, I can easily find out that, okay, this is a Sachin Hissaria. So basically, this is a piece of information which relates to an identifiable personal. So this is a personal information, correct? So likewise, company needed to first identify what personal informations they are processing. Okay. Then they need to make sure that they are complying with their applicable regulatory requirements. Similarly, guys, company needed to also ensure that sorry, yeah, not feeling well. Yeah, so company also need to ensure that roles and responsibility related to data, privacy training, awareness, communications, monitoring the vendor activities, okay, developing privacy audit process, all this needs to be identified and needs to be documented. So who are the people in the organization who will conduct a privacy training, who will do the monitoring of a vendor, who will develop the privacy audit program? So all that roles and responsibility needs to be identified and documented as a part of data privacy governance mechanism. Okay. To accomplish this, company must determine internal and external requirement for enterprise privacy program and practices. So now what happened is that as a part of data privacy governance program, company will identify certain internal and external requirement. Okay, internal and external requirement, and again this requirement may vary based on certain regulatory requirement, but we will be going to discuss in a general way. Okay, so if I divide the privacy program requirement in internal and external, so these are the requirement. For example, as a part of internal requirement, company will assign the roles and responsibility, okay, for defining and inventorying the personal information. So in an organization there would be some people who would be identifying the personal information, and then they are making an inventory for the same. Company will implement an enterprise employee privacy policies, procedures and training. So company will document their own policies, procedures and a training. They will establish a vendor management program for managing a privacy incident. So whenever any vendor would be onboarded, and if you are sharing any personal informations with that vendor, for example, I have onboarded a vendor for help desk function. Now, in order to manage that help desk function, we are sharing our customer data with that help desk function. So for that, company needs to document a vendor management program. Okay, that how that informations would be shared, how that informations will be secured by a vendor, what kind of access they would be having. So all that would be documented. On a regular basis, company needed to perform the privacy audits and assessment as well. Okay, and accounting for the capabilities and limitations of information system. So basically, company will account, what are the limitations which are there in our information system. So when they will do a privacy risk assessment, at that time they will consider this factor as well. So these are the internal requirement which company need to document. Now, if we talk about an external requirement will include that company first need to identify which privacy law is applicable to that company. Okay. Then company may choose any privacy principles and frameworks. So for data privacy also, guys, there are certain frameworks available in the market. For example, if I talk about one of the framework, which is an NIST privacy framework. So company has to determine whether they want to comply with this framework or whether they don't want to comply with this framework. So they need to do this exercise. Similarly, guys, there is an ISO standard which is also related to the privacy. I believe it is ISO 27701, which is related to, yeah, privacy information management system. So this ISO standard is also there. So as a part of this, company needed to identify which privacy principle and frameworks they are adopting. Then company will be posting a privacy notice that reflect an actual enterprise practice and meets the legal requirement. So this we will be going to discuss in the upcoming slides as well, that how company will maintain their privacy notice. Okay, they will maintain a third party oversight. So whenever any third party would be appointed, like for example here, then company need to make sure that they are oversighting their activity. Okay, regular monitoring. Company need to address data subject right. Now what happened, guys, in each the privacy law, in each the privacy law, regulator will also define certain data subject right. Now who you might be thinking, who is a data subject? Guys, data subject is what? It is a person whose personal information is collected. It is called as a data subject. For example, I am a Sachin Hissaria. I went to buy a SIM card. Okay. I went to buy a SIM card uh, with Airtel company. Now, in this case, I am a data subject because my personal informations I have shared with the Airtel company. So I am a data subject. So in each the privacy law, in each the privacy law, a regulator will define certain rights, that what kind of rights data subject has. For example, in GDPR, there is one right, the data subject can ask for deletion of their data. For example, suppose I buy a SIM card and after certain period of time, I have changed my this company from Airtel. Suppose I switched to Voda Idea, then I may ask an Airtel company to delete my privacy informations. Okay. Likewise, there are certain rights which has been given to the data subject. So company needed to company need to address those data subject right. They need to implement a process or control in a place. Okay, that suppose if data subject request for this, how we would be going to execute the same. For that, it has to be there, addressing the requirement of customer, investors and industry sources. Again, company need to make sure that uh, they are meeting the requirement of customer, investors and industry sources, accommodating existing contractuals relationship. Okay, in existing contract, for example, in India, if I talk about in India, recently DPDP Act has been passed, correct? Now as of now the rules are in a drafting stage, but suppose if rules will become finalized, and from an XYZ, suppose if company needed to comply with this framework, this regulatory requirement, then they needed to modify their existing contract. Suppose if DPDP Act ask a company to add specific clause into the contract, so accordingly they needed to accommodate those requirement into the current contractual relationship. Okay, guys. So this is about a privacy program requirement. Okay. So we have discussed this. I will just summarize what we had discussed. So guys, we had just discussed the data privacy programs in principle, where we had discussed that first company need to identify how many personal information they are collecting. Definition of personal information will vary regulatory based on a regulatory requirement, based on the regulators where your company is operating. Company need to do that. Then company need to document the roles and responsibility for certain tasks, like a training, who will do the training awareness. Okay, who will monitor the vendor activity, who will develop the privacy audit process, who will manage the privacy incident. So those roles and responsibility needs to be documented, and then we had discussed certain internal and external requirement. Okay, now we will discuss about privacy documentation. So guys, in order to manage the privacy, it is very, very important that we will document whatever is required as per applicable privacy law. In order to meet the obligations under the applicable privacy law, company need to document certain things. Okay. So they need to document, for example, internal policies and procedures, external privacy notices. Okay. They also needed to adopt certain industry standard as we discussed earlier. Okay. Like NIST or ISO. Okay. Company need to make sure that both inward facing policies, procedures, and related documentation and outward facing privacy notices, websites, social media pages are regularly reviewed and evaluated that it is aligned with the privacy requirement. Now, what is inward facing policies, outward facing privacy notice? All this we will be going to discuss in our upcoming slides. Okay, I would be showing you a real life example also for this. So basically, in just to summarize this particular slide, guys, it is saying that company need to document a certain aspect of data privacy as per the applicable privacy law requirement. Okay, and they need to demonstrate that they are complying with the applicable privacy law. This is what it is talking about. Now we will be going to discuss about a different type of documentation. As I told you initially, guys, this list of documentation has been derived from a various privacy law requirement. If you are in India, then you need to see what DPDP Act is saying. If you in a EU country, then you need to see what GDPR is saying. So wherever you are doing an audit, okay, in whatever country you are doing an audit, first you need to understand that privacy requirement, and then only you needed to evaluate the company's document whether those documents are in aligned with the applicable legal requirement or not. In this topic, we will be going to discuss some generic documentation, which generally you will find in all the data privacy law. Okay. So first is a privacy notice. Now, what is a privacy notice, guys? Privacy notice is an outward facing statement that is written for data subject. Who is a data subject? Customer. So basically, company will write certain outward facing statement for their data subject and the data protection authorities. It will describe how enterprise will collect, how they will use, how they will retain, how they will safeguard and securely disclose your personal informations. Now, let me just show you one example for privacy notice. For example, I want to download my PAN card. Okay, PAN card. Now, when I will go to this website, okay, in this website, they are collecting my personal information. See, Aadhaar number is a personal information in India. Okay, if you are watching this video from another country, you can understand that it is our identity number. It is our identity number. Okay, so when I am providing my identity number, company has given a link for their privacy notice. Okay, this is the link for the same. So what they have uh, written here that what personal informations they will collect. Okay, so they are collecting this many personal informations from me. Then how they will transfer, disclose my personal information. Okay, so here generally you will see one clause that suppose if regulator ask for your personal informations, then that information will be shared without your knowledge. For example, if Indian government is asking a data from NSDL, okay, which is a protein now, okay, for a particular customer, then they will share that information without intimating to that customer. Okay, then what they will how your personal information will be used. For example, sometime you might have noticed that when you provide a number, your mobile number to an insurance company, you will start getting some, messages on a WhatsApp, some emails, promotional emails, correct? So now, if company want to promote their product to you, then they need to take a specific consent. For example, here it is written that you have given us a consent to provide a marketing information about a product and services. So they have already taken your consent about this. Then only they are sharing that promotional informations and marketing informationals on your number or on your email ID. Okay. So that is why you need to read this privacy, notices, that what information they are collecting, how they would be using, what kind of security measures that company have implemented to protect your data. So this is what the privacy notice is. Okay. Whatever we have discussed, I have shown you the real life example as well. Yeah. Because privacy relies on informed consent, and enterprise privacy notice establishes its legal accountability as well. Correct, guys? Because whatever information that they are collecting, they are taking your prior consent. So it will help the organization in establishing a legal accountability. Okay. Now there are two more terms. One is data controller and second is data processor. Second is data processor. So we'll again discuss the same example. Now in this example, okay, Airtel company is what? Data controller. Now guys, who is a data controller? Data controller is a person who will define the purpose and the uses of personal data. Who is data controller? Controller is a person who will determine and decide the purpose and use of personal information. Now, Airtel will decide that this personal informations, whatever I have collected, this personal information will be used for the purpose of issuing a SIM card. Correct? So he is a data controller. Now, there was another terminology. What was that? It was a data processor. Now, who is a data processor? Now, guys, suppose in order to complete certain task, for example, help desk function only previously also we have discussed, correct? So suppose company have outsourced this help desk function to SHN company. Now, SHN company is what? It can be considered as a data processor. So they are processing your data on behalf of data controller. What SHN company is now doing? SHN company is processing your personal data on behalf of data controller. So that is why they will be a data processor. So they need to comply with the parameters which are mentioned in the privacy notices. Okay. In addition to accountability, privacy notices also serves the other purposes. So basically, as we discussed, privacy notice will provide you detailed information, what personal data collected, why the data will be collected, how the data will be used, with whom the data will be shared, how long company will retain a data, how the data collection may impact the data subject, and when your data would be destroyed. So generally company will write a generic statement that we will retain your data as per the applicable regulatory requirement, okay, and as per the retention policies of the company, after which your data would be destroyed or it will be purged. So that will be written. Informing a data subject about the procedures to exercise their right over their associated privacy personal information. So as a part of privacy notice, we are informing the data subject that what are their rights. Okay. For example, let me show you another privacy notice as per the GDPR. For that, what we will do, we will open the Tesla company's privacy notice. Okay. So here also you can see that they have given the privacy notices. Okay. What informations they are collecting, how they are using, how they will share your informations. Okay. So a very detailed privacy notice is here. Maybe you can read out this privacy notice. It will give you a decent idea that what is included into the privacy notices. Okay. Now, next is what? How these privacy notices will be presented to data subject. So one example I have already shown you that this privacy notices can be there on the enterprise website itself. Correct. This is my company's website. On the company's website itself, I have given the privacy notice. Sometime what will happen when you are collecting the informations on a form, correct, physical form, sometime we are required to fill a form. So in that form also you can print those privacy notices, brochures. Okay, so basically sometime what happen is that companies are sending a brochures to their all customers. Okay, so in that brochure also company will describe the privacy notice related requirement, documents that are provided at an enterprise facility. So for example, when you go to the hospitals and all, they provide you a certain list of documents. Okay, and certain papers that we will be collecting this information, this would be used. And so it may be in the term of document, it may be in the terms of contract when you are entering into a contract with the third party. In that contract also you can decide and you can write the privacy notices. Yeah, so I believe there was some network issue. Let me reshare my screen. Yeah, so we were discussing about the privacy notices, guys. So in as we discussed, privacy notices can be presented to data subject in the form of website, as we discussed. Sometime it will be there on the form. Okay. If you are using some forms to collect a personal information in that form, also you can write the privacy notice. Brochures. Okay, so sometimes companies send a brochure to their customers. Okay, so on that brochure itself they can write a privacy notices. Documentations, suppose you go to the hospitals and some other enterprise facilities, so in that document also they will write the privacy notices and they will explain you that this is how your personal information collected and used. And they will ask your acknowledgement. Sometime in the contract, when you enter into a contract with the third party, at the time also you can write a privacy notices. And sometime what happens is that on the company's building, there are certain placeholders. On that placeholders, company will put some signboards and their privacy notices policy itself also. Okay, so these are the various way through which company will present a privacy notices to a data subject. Okay, now sometime what will happen, guys, that company will describe the terms of use. Okay, whenever they are collecting the personal information, there would be a one paragraph related to terms of use. Okay, so in that terms of use also company will include all the requirement like which are related to privacy notice, such as what data collected, why collected, how long it will be retained and all. So all those points sometime will be included into the terms of use statement. But if I tell you that what is a good practice, guide, so good practice is what? Always maintain a separate privacy notices. Don't merge those privacy notices along with the terms of use. Okay. So that is a one point. Suppose if you are going for an audit and if client says that our privacy notice related requirement are included in a term of use, so as an auditor, you need to suggest them that boss, don't do this. Please document a separate privacy notices and a terms of use. Similarly, guys, the timing of privacy notices, like when you will provide these notices to a data subject, obviously when you are collecting a personal data, so this privacy notices will be provided to data subject at the time when you are collecting the personal information. Similarly, you need to give a sufficient time to the customers, okay, so that they can read this. So there has to be a sufficient time between the notice and collection for data subject to evaluate whether they are acceptance is in their best interest or not. For example, in this case, when I am providing this privacy notice, so I cannot do such kind of setting where suppose this is my privacy notice, user has only 3 seconds or 4 seconds to read this privacy notice. After that, it will disappear. So that means what? You have given a very less time to a data subject to read that privacy notice. You need to make sure that you have given a sufficient amount of time to the data subject to read those privacy statements. If you give very little time to data subject prior to collecting this personal information, even though you have given a very comprehensive notice, it will be considered as an insufficient. Okay. I have documented very detailed privacy notice, but I haven't given a time to data subject to read those privacy notices. Then it will be deemed as an insufficient. Okay. So this is about a privacy notice, guys. Now, second documentation is a consent form. Now, what is a consent form, guys? So basically, consent form will include the intended use of intended use the about the personal informations. Okay, so let me just show you a real life example. Here I am collecting the personal information. So what I have done, I have given this is what, this is a consent form. The person who would be providing me the personal information, he will also provide his consent to me that I am agree to provide you this informations. Okay. So basically the consent form is it is the intended use of a consent form are to provide informations for the potential data subjects current and future reference and document the interaction between the subject and entity obtaining the consent. Now, consent form should include a provision for what? Obtaining consent for existing personal data, renewing a consent if non-compliant. So basically, first we are collecting the consent for existing data. Correct? Whatever data that you are collecting, here you are collecting the Aadhaar and PAN number. So you will be taking a consent for this data. This is one point. Okay, renewing a consent if non-complied. For example, suppose now using that personal information, if you want to launch a new product, okay, and in that new product also you want to use that personal informations of that person. So again, you need to renew your consent. Okay, again you need to renew your consent. A consent form could take the form of an opt-in or opt-out button. So basically what happen is that you will ask a customer that if you are agreed, then only click on this button. Correct? Opt-in, opt-out, a tick box on a web page at the bottom of the privacy notice or statement, or a signature box at the bottom of paper form containing the similar privacy notices. So basically what it is saying that customers should have an option that they have a choice basically whether they want to give that consent or whether they don't want to give the consent. Okay. So it has to be there, and consent needs to be written in the simple language as far as possible. Now in most of the privacy law regulation, you will also see that consent needs to be communicated in the local language also. Okay, so this is English. Now, suppose if someone cannot read an English, so for that there is an option to convert these languages into the local languages. And suppose if there is a visually challenged person, okay, if you are collecting a personal information from them, for that also you have made a mechanism where that person can play the audio. Okay, so company needed to define those kind of procedures, that how they would be collecting this informations. Okay, and they will write that consent in the simple language as far as possible. A signed consent form in on its own may not establish an adequate consent process. The informed consent process is an ongoing exchange of information between enterprise and data subject. So basically, what it is saying that see, when you are collecting this information, then also you are taking a consent. But after that, also there has to be a regular online exchange of information between an enterprise and data subject. So sometime what happens that companies are sending some awareness emailers to our customers, okay, certain presentations to a customer that we have collected this information for this purpose. So there has to be an online exchange of informations between enterprise and data subject, okay. Now what company need to do, company need to take an consent, and that consent should also include the data subject's right, okay. Obtaining a documented consent is a separate activity from data controller informing a data subject how to make inquiry or notifying the enterprise on a various types of decision. So basically here what happen as a part of data subject right, company will also document a process that how they will notify to their various decisions to the customers and all, okay. In most of the cases what happen, data subject have a right to withdraw their consent. As I told you, at any given point of time, if they feel that they want to withdraw their consent, they can do the same, okay. So for that also there has to be a process, okay. So this is about a consent. Now let me just tell you a few more thing about a consent. So basically what happen is, in the consent also organization will determine what will be the use of personal information, how that information will be used, okay. Once you will provide that informations, then how company will use that information, the purpose of collecting the information, the use of that personal information, it has to be documented into the consent form, okay guys. So this is about an consent form. Now what I will do is I will create a second part of a video, okay, for this part. That is all. And I will create another video for second part also, okay. So see you in the second part. Thank you so much. Bye bye, take care.